and freestanding mammography clinics were eliminating the service because the reimbursement was insufficient to pay for the physician time, the technician time, and the overhead costs. So we have many parts of my state where it's very difficult to access mammogram. And what I'm worried about is that in light of this controversy, we will see more and more insurance companies determining that they will no longer cover the cost of mammography, concluding that because it is somewhat in dispute as to its importance, that it's no longer a covered service. So I'm hoping that your very straightforward statement that it is still the recommendation of the National Cancer Institute that women starting at the age of 40 have mammogram will give us the ammunition we need to avoid further cutbacks in access and reimbursement, which I'm very concerned about.
Dr. Bailey is an international expert and is the chairman of biostatistics at the University of Texas, and he serves and he's also principal investigator on a project funded by the National Cancer Institute to assess the relative contribution of screening mammography, tamoxifen, and chemotherapy in terms of the drop in breast cancer. We invited him to really come to speak as a member of the Physicians Data Query Screening and Prevention Board, the PDQ, which has raised some yellow flashing lights about the efficacy of mammograms.
I serve on the PDQ Screening and Prevention Board. We discuss published literature and decide how to modify a website accordingly. This website is used by physicians and the lay public, and so with respect to Senator Clinton's question, the women in her state can log on to the PDQ website and get information about screening benefits and risks. We assign levels of evidence to our statement. We are independent of the NCI. We are not advisory to the NCI. We do not establish guidelines. We do not make official recommendations. At a recent PDQ meeting, we discussed, as a matter of course, this paper that has been mentioned, referred to by Senator Mikulski and others, by Olson and Getche, that critique the randomized trials of screening mammography. We agreed with some of the criticisms, but not with all. Our current statement indicates that the benefits of screening are uncertain. Based in part on this study, the plan is to modify the statement to add that the existence of a benefit is itself uncertain. The deficiencies with which we agreed are discussed in detail in my written report, which I asked to be included as part of the record. In each case, there was evidence of a bias favoring screening, but not all trials were subject to these biases. Briefly, first, women with pre-existing breast cancer were preferentially excluded from the screening group. Second, attribution of cause of death was not blinded. Third, in 3 of the Swedish trials, the control mammogram slipped, the timing slipped, increasing the time to count breast cancer in the control groups. This is a technicality which we can get into if you'd like, but it is an important bias. And fourth, and finally, there has been no independent audits of the Swedish trials. In contrast, the Canadian trial, which showed no screening benefit, has been thoroughly audited. In my report, I explain how people can differ in their evaluation of evidence towards screening. At least 90% of what we know in medicine is the result of clinical observation, with the rest derived from randomized controlled trials. Experience is a great teacher, but when inferring the benefits of screening, clinical observation is flawed. Women with breast cancer detected mammographically have extremely good prognoses in comparison with those having cancers detected in any other way. But this doesn't mean that screening reduces mortality in itself. I explain why this is so in my report, and I discuss the associated biases. Hence the need for randomized trials. How impressive are the results of the trials? Suppose we ignore the Canadian trial, which showed no screening benefit, and take the results of the Swedish trials at face value. The most recent data from Sweden show a 21% reduction in breast cancer mortality. This is a paper that has been accepted to appear. It's currently under embargo by the journal, and so I can't be too specific about it, but the 21% figure appeared in the press, and this is a lowering of the 30% figure which occurred earlier, and it applies to all ages. There is no distinction between less than 50 and greater than 50. This is a relative risk reduction. One way to convert it into a more meaningful absolute measure of risk is to ask the corresponding increase in life expectancy. Out to 18 years of follow-up in the Swedish trials, this increase is about 4 days per woman screened. In contrast, quitting smoking adds years to life expectancy. What should we tell women? The answer is the truth. The benefits of screening are uncertain, and women should know this. They should be informed of the possible benefits and risks, along with the associated uncertainties, and decide about screening for themselves. I discussed the risks of screening in my report, and I hope you ask me about that. Where do we go from here? We cannot do another randomized trial in this country. I completely agree with Dr. von Eschenbach. But there are several steps we can take, and there are developments being pursued. One is we should provide women with aids so that they can make informed decisions about screening. Secondly, the Swedish trial should be independently audited. Thirdly, there is an NCI-sponsored program called CISNET that addresses this question that Dr. von Eschenbach put up on the board regarding the decrease in breast cancer mortality, trying to apportion the relative contributions of screening mammography, hormonal therapy, and advances in chemotherapy. The fourth is the most promising of all. We know little about the biology of the disease, as Dr. von Eschenbach indicated, but we're learning. Cancers that manifest, cancers may manifest their metastatic potential. Yes, I'm almost done. Their metastatic potential when they are tiny, say when they total only a few million cells, or they may start sloughing off their tumors, the tumor cells for traveling to the rest of the body when they have become large enough to be detected mammographically. Screening would be effective in the second case, but not the first. We're learning fast about the biology of the disease, and soon we'll be able to decide which. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss this very important issue in women's health, a topic which I have dedicated and will continue to dedicate my career. I'm happy to answer questions.
Dr. Berry, again, in layman's terms, let me just try to propound this question. All things being equal, as they say, if a woman has the opportunity to have mammogram screening available to her, say after age 40, and she can do the other things. She can obviously self-exam and have physicals every year. Would it be your advice to a woman to skip the mammogram? Saying she can afford it, all things being equal, that it's available and stuff, would you say just skip it? Or would you advise to have a mammogram as part of the toolbox that we talked about earlier of different things that we can do to try to detect?
I would not advise either way. I would discuss with the woman, as for example I have with my wife and daughters, what the benefits are, what the uncertainties are associated with those benefits, what the risks are, and the risks are, they may be more important for one woman than another woman, and if that woman, including members of my family, decide to have a mammogram, I would support that to the utmost. If they decide not to, I would support that as well.
Is it true is it factual that that the earlier a cancer is discovered, in this case breast cancer, the earlier it's discovered, that the higher the probability will be that that woman could successfully have that treated, one way or the other, surgical removal or whatever, and that woman could successfully have that treated, one way or the other, surgical removal or whatever, and that woman could successfully have that treated, one way or the other, surgical removal or whatever, and that woman could successfully have that treated, one way or the other, surgical removal or whatever, and have a better probability of a longer lifespan and a healthier quality of lifespan than if that woman waited until the cancer had grown and metastasized. Is that a factual statement?